Zimmer Championship cross country course in a rainy Madison, Wisconsin. The women's championship race is complete. Congratulations to Northern Arizona on the team side and Florida junior Parker Valby winning on the individual championship race side. Paul Swangard joined by the NCAA champion from 2000, Kara Gott. Do you want to say that one more time for effect?
Like, do we have to say from 2000? We could just say the former NCAA champion.
It was this century.
It was. Okay, you're right. Okay, I'll take it. And also, just to note, just to shout out my Buffaloes, that we also won the team title that day in 2000. That was our first team title. Yeah.
Iowa City, is that where the race was?
It was in Ames at Iowa State, and it was a course like this, beautiful course, made for run-in, made for cross-country, big start line, lots of hills, true cross-country, which is why I'm so excited to be joining you today, because we're watching that right now. We're seeing real cross-country.
Well, let's talk about this men's championship race by the numbers, as there's a ton of talent here on the men's side as well. Saw a great race on the women's side. Most of all of the top teams in the country are here, and also some of the top individuals. The 5 of the top 10 individual finishers are entered. Men's individual winners have gone on to win the NCAAs if they win here at Nuttycombe, so it's a good precursor, foreshadowing of what we might see in Virginia in mid-November. So, again, this event has only been around for, better part of a decade or so, but they have built a reputation of this is a good place to establish your credibility going into the championship racing season in a cross-country year.
Absolutely. We've seen the teams that have been racing, they've raced in smaller meets, but this is the first real big one and the one that has a lot of meaning, right? You get to face the top competition. You can kind of compare yourself to other teams, other people around you. You get to kind of feel that pressure because the race really does matter today. They still have a month until the NCAAs. It's enough time to correct some things, but it's not enough time to totally change who you are. So a lot of information they get today. And again, we've talked about this and we'll continue to. The added challenge of the weather, it's something to consider and see who prevails in it.
Yeah, we saw the winds definitely gusting throughout that women's race. As we take a look now at the current rankings and some of our top teams. NAU, of course, the big story here, number 1 ranked in the country, but 3rd last year behind Stanford and BYU. The only school with 5 wins here, but the last time they won was pre-pandemic 2019, and they've gotten off to a good start. Their first 2 races this year have been very impressive, including that win over BYU in Virginia on September the 23rd. Wisconsin, obviously on home course, trying to assert themselves here, North Carolina and Syracuse. But just like the women who had 23 of the top 30 teams here, on the men's side, it is 21 of the top 30. Maybe only notable absences: Oklahoma State, Virginia, which is hosting pre-nats this weekend, and then a few squads out of the SEC, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Alabama. But the vast majority, 13 of the top 15 teams, are here.
Yeah, and this is going to give us a lot of information of who's ready, who is in that strength phase, and who's ready to really push for that title a month from now. But there's a lot of really great individual athletes in here as well.
You think so? You think so? As you look at that list, it is a star-studded cast of collegians, including the defending champion from here at Nuttycombe, Kai Robinson of Stanford, and then the Northern Arizona 1-2 punch, but they have such a deeper bench of punchers, Nico Young and Drew Bosley. Bosley considered among the strong favorites here. Got Graham Blanks from Harvard, BYU representing well, Parker Wolf having a good, strong early part of the season for North Carolina. Bob Liking of Wisconsin performed well here last year. The Big Ten champion will be trying to win on his home course. But, again, we saw it on the women's side. A lot of talent at the front, but it may be dependent on whether some of these bigger names like a Drew Bosley and Kai Robinson just say, hey, given how much talent there is here, we're going to take this race and try to strangulate the rest of the field pretty early.
And, the men have the advantage. They saw the women go. They saw Parker Valby and Caitlin Tui go out there and see that it didn't cost them their races. They both ran really well and really strong throughout here. I just have to shout out, Paul, that Kenneth Rooks from BYU is in this race, and he gave us one of the most exciting races at the U.S. Championships earlier this year, where he fell in the steeplechase, recovered it, ended up winning the national title. So it'll be fun to see him running cross country here today.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of not experience, it were, but it was kind of a surprise, maybe given his success on the track, that cross country would be, part of his plan for the fall. But again, I think somebody also who is drawn by the ability to run with his teammates and that camaraderie. Again, one of the great facets to cross country at the collegiate level. Final run out strides here. Again, a reminder, at the conclusion of this championship race on the men's side, we'll go back to those B races. So it'll be a chance for us to see some of the emerging talent from some of these collegiate squads. And, again, I hope you'll stay with us. It's been great to have the opportunity to cover this event these last couple of years. And with the swap of the races here, the B races will be afforded the limelight as the third and fourth races on our schedule today. We work our way down the various boxes. 23rd ranked Iowa State next to 8th ranked Air Force. We'll see North Carolina here pop up momentarily, ranked 5th in the country next to the hosts. Number 4 ranked Wisconsin, Eastern Kentucky in box 14. Stanford ranked 13th in the country next to Washington, their final year together in the Pac-12 conference. BYU, Notre Dame, Loyola, and Princeton. And then coming into picture, there is the number 1 ranked Northern Arizona University squad, Florida State. Have to mention Colorado. It is in Kara's contract to be on this broadcast. NC State, Texas, Iona, Cal Baptist. Again, one of the great stories in collegiate cross country is they're 14th ranked in the country, trying to make their first Division I NCAA championship this year. Wake Forest, Furman, the men from Harvard, Providence, Butler, and New Mexico under first-year head coach Darren Gosson, as they will get set for racing here. Again, 21 of the top 30 teams in the NCAAs are here under less than perfect conditions. But if you're a true cross-country fan, these are perfect conditions. Maybe 20 degrees colder would make it just perfect. But
it could be a little bit more challenging. But, they do have the wind and the rain.
Couple of hay bales and a water jump at some point.
A giant mud pit. Yeah, that'd be great. Let's make these athletes work a little harder.
Yeah, well, it is mid-October. The championship is now just a little bit more than a month away. Call it 5 weekends away. And we are underway in Madison, the 2023 Nuttycombe, Wisconsin Cross Country Invitational. The men's championship race is underway at 8,000 meters. And once again, this Sea of Humanity working their way down that opening chute, 700 meters or so, the race to the end of the chute as we get things underway.
And I just love this. You don't see this. I'm just going to say it over and over again. I love the start line of a cross-country race on a real cross-country course, seeing all the athletes spread across. It really is a thing of beauty. I love it so much, and it really does remind you that there is a team aspect to this. Yeah, we're going to see a few men in the front fighting for that win, but look at all of these men participating. They're all here to help their team.
Well, a big shout out to our production team at Runner's Space, who's been out there for a couple of days making sure that all the technology would work under the conditions that we had. We had drones scheduled to be there, a lot of new features to add to, but those conditions obviously are not affording us much in the way of shots from the air, but the shots from the ground have been spectacular today. And again, big thanks to the crew there that's surviving these conditions as much as the athletes are as well. As we are underway, they're getting themselves down over these nice little undulations here at the southern part of this Zimmer Championship course, as we, on that left side of your screen, begin to work our way through the list of all of the teams and the 7 men that they have submitted here for the racing. Again, many of these teams brought more than 7. We'll see the rest of those squads in the B races coming up here shortly.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, Paul. The men got to see the women. They were probably warming up, but trust me, they were paying attention. Are they going to wait a little bit in these conditions and let the wind be broken for them, or they're going to go out and start racing aggressively? At this point, we already had women separated from the pack. But right now, it seems like the men are not quite as aggressive. Again, they also have to run 8 kilometers. So they have a longer race ahead of them than the women did.
15:36 is William Zagarski, the freshman out of Butler, who was leading that pack early on. Now you see among them. Nico Young on the far left of your screen, kind of tucked in there behind one of the CBU athletes. And then 1765, that's Drew Bosley in the hat next to the CBU athlete. And as we zoom in on the left corner of your screen to the course tracker powered by Athletic, you can see them coming through just now 1 kilometer of this race. And they settle in here to the early going. We'll see how this race unfolds as it related to what we saw on the women's side, where we saw 3 women decide to take it early and hard at the front of the pack and leave the rest of the group behind. Right now, everyone more comfortable to settle into a group run here early on in Madison.
I wish I could feel their feet, because we know that the more that the courses run on, the more it's going to get sloppy and it's going to sort of start to fall apart a little bit. Right now, they all look like they're popping off it okay, like they're getting good grip on that ground. But that could become an issue later, and certainly in the races after this.
Bib number 8, 1984 for Wisconsin, Evan Bishop. I won't regale all my favorite songs from 1984, but I like the bib number as he runs alongside Drew Bosley here in the early going. And then Kai Robinson, our defending champion, 1862, on the screen right side as we get a look at the squad that Gonzaga has brought here to Madison. Harvard with Kovash, the freshman, among the standout early performers in 2023. But already, Kara, looking like a different race on the men's side.
Yeah, we're starting to see those favorites that we were expecting to see work their way up towards the front. I like where Nico Young is placed. He's kind of behind his teammate. He's getting a little bit of the wind block for him. But we are seeing those favorites sort of make their way and show the rest of the pack that they're in this, they're here. We see them trying to run the tangents as cleanly as possible. And I would imagine over the next K, we'll start to see some separation of a lead pack.
Center picture in the headband, 1763. That's Parker Wolf, the junior from North Carolina, who was 6th last year, and then went on to finish the top 10 at the NCAA championships. So he is among the favorites here and settling in with the favorites. There you see the rest of his squad. And there's that squad from Northern Arizona. Just look at that depth that they have. Brody Hasty, we haven't even mentioned. Theo Quacks, of course, Nico Young, you mentioned there as well. As they come down the hill, they're trying to get themselves a sense of that footing. Bosley having a little bit of trouble here with that momentum coming through and avoids disaster, but maybe using that little downhill to start to break open this group at the front here as the pace seems to quicken just a bit.
Well, that made us both cringe a little bit. It looked like he might go down there, which tells us that, the course is deteriorating a little bit. It is wet out there. It's windy out there. But he stayed on his feet and kind of used that to find himself in the lead now. I don't know that he wanted to be in the lead, but he definitely is now, and he's not afraid now. He's just going to kind of charge with that. And sort of he's running smart on that rail. He's going to just sort of be the leader now for this group.
There's a look at the leaders at 2,000 meters, and then we'll afford you that real-time updating of the team score. Northern Arizona in a comfortable spot, and why not? They have Bosley in first, Young in second, and then you go back to 11th with Aaron Las Harris, the senior, back in that third position for them. BYU currently in second, Notre Dame in third, and I'll mention the University of Colorado in fourth, just so I get a smile from Kara Goucher.
Yes, just so you guys all know, I'm wearing my Colorado shirt.
But Kara, you were saying that, you know, in talking to the coaching staff there, they're trying to get momentum in that squad. Always a fixture of cross country at the national level, but this year having to do battle to get that momentum and confidence back.
Yeah, and you know, some teams go through years where they're on top and where they're down low, and there's always years where you're sort of building back, and I think that's where Colorado is a little bit right now, building back and really getting themselves to take some risks and put themselves in the race. They certainly have talent, but we are seeing Bosley really start to just, it's like he kind of got forced to the front there, and now he's decided, fine, I wanted to be here anyway. I will, if you guys want me to lead, I'll lead, and I'll run the race that's right for me. Looking really good, smart with the hat in these conditions, I have to say. And, we see people tucking right behind him because they know he's a threat, he's the real deal. And if they can ride that for a little while and not have to do their own, hammering into the wind, it's a smart move.
So Bosley the leader, then the defending champion Kai Robinson right behind him. Nico Young there in about third, back in fourth in the all-red of the New Mexico kit is Haptum Samuel, the freshman from New Mexico. Eritrean had a good performance at Roy Griak as he took their gold championship race. So mixing it up here among the best in the country, seeing how he can do. Obviously, New Mexico in a bit of a transition with new head coach Darren Gosson taking over the reins there. And the freshman trying to help the Lobos here on the team side as well. They were back in 12th position through the 2K split. Beginning to start to not thin out per se, but again, it's a lot of 2-3 abreast runners now and a long line. Look at that. There is absolutely no separation, Kara. That's the big thing here. There is no separation between first and in seemingly 300th position.
Right. And that's the thing about cross country. We've seen these men, they went to the front. Maybe they didn't want to press right away, but we saw Robinson go towards that front right away. When you have it's so strung out like that, it's harder to weave your way through. So these guys need to get to the front, get themselves in those positions. And then what's difficult is then they're going to still have to kick off of that. But you got to, you have to be in it to win it. We saw all the favorites sort of move their way up over that first kilometer and make sure they were in that front, because as we start to see separation over the next kilometer or so, they need to be there. They can't be working through the people that are falling off to get up there.
A little over 3 kilometers in. You can see where they are on our course tracker powered by Athletic. It'll get back down to that southern end of the Zimmer Championship course. Arturs Medveds of Cal Baptist. They're back in about 6th, 7th position, hugging the right side of your screen, right behind the BYU athlete Aiden Troutner. But Bosley and Nico Young, easy to pick out those two in the NAU kits here as they lead this group now. The senior came through the first split in 5:44, but pretty much, the top, let's call it top 30 with about 3 seconds of the leaders here. So a very different race unfolding here in the men's championship race versus the breakaway we saw in the women's race with Valby and Tui and Bunnage.
I do think, even though we see this big group of men, I do think that Bosley is the one setting the tone right now and setting the pace. No one seems to want to challenge him right now. They seem happy to say, okay, he's going to drag us out. We know he's going to help us separate from everyone else. And he's sort of setting the pace right now. And he's really the one, even though they're in this big group, he's really the one that's in the lead and sort of deciding what's happening right now, pace-wise.
And Kara, I assume you've been in cross-country events where there's been a number of races that preceded your race, whether you were running the championship race or the last race in the sequence. What's the biggest thing that I guess you or your coaches tell you about sort of deteriorating conditions? What are you to be most worried about, having had other runners already out on that course and this not being the fresh track?
Right. Well, obviously you just need to be really aware, right? If you can run on the outside and run where steps haven't been running as much, where the course is probably in a little bit better shape, like here on the outsides, it's probably the footing's a little bit better than straight down the middle where the pack has been forced to come through. And you just have to be aware of that. And the other thing you have to remember is that it's going to feel a lot harder in that second half with conditions like this, because your foot is working harder to plant. Everything's working a little bit harder than normal. So remembering, hey, I need to make sure I have a little extra energy reserve at this point than I normally would worry about, because I do have this other element of just fatigue, lower leg fatigue, that's going to set in from running in these conditions.
Yeah, you saw a lot of arms flailing there as they came down that last little undulation as they've gone through 4K now. Look at Northern Arizona's score as they strengthen their hold on the leadership position here, and why not? They have 4 of their 5 runners in the top 10 right now, and you go back to Gorgas in 45th position, but he's only about, 11 seconds out of the top 10. So that spread looking pretty good. BYU running well here. They're with 147 points. Their top runner, Thompson, in 8th position with 3 runners in the top 20. Then back to Notre Dame, Syracuse, and CBU running very well right now. They are in 5th position. Villanova in 6th, Colorado in 7th, New Mexico in 8th, Iowa State in 9th, and Georgetown currently in 10th position, now halfway through this 8,000-meter distance.
Paul, that's what I love about cross country. What you see at 4K is not necessarily what you're going to see at 8K now. Now, NAU seems like they know what they're doing. Obviously, they are an extremely talented team, but you never know who might move up later and who might fall back. And it's cool that we get to see this race unfolding with these stats. It really helps us understand the race, and it helps us understand how these teams are racing and what their strengths are.
Great crowd out there in Madison weathering the storm as the racers weather the storm there. You can see that rain continuing to fall. If you pulled up a weather map today, there was no question these conditions were going to be challenging for the athletes. You see Drew Bosley and Kai Robinson. Those are our top 2 through 4K. Parker Wolf still among the leaders coming through 4K in 5th position. Will Smith, the junior from Gonzaga, now up into 6th. Samuel of New Mexico, the freshman, in 7th. Creed Thompson of BYU in 8th position. Graham Blanks of Harvard back there in 10th position.
Robinson looks awfully good. You know, he came to the front pretty early on, stayed out actually leading it. But I think at this point, he is the one controlling the race, and he looks really good. It's impressive to see an athlete like him come back again another year and just like run the same way and be in the front. And that's tough. And especially the male athletes tend to get better as they get older, as they go through the collegiate program. So he's obviously a huge talent. We see him up front wanting to become a double winner here at the Nuttycombe.
Yeah, only 2 men have defended their title in Nuttycombe history, and the 2 names are pretty good ones. Justin Knight of Syracuse, Lowie Lalang of Arizona, both defended their title. Kai Robinson trying to do it again here in 2023. As you look back to some of the other runners here, as they're beginning to see some separation and some shakeout of this group that stayed pretty well connected through the first, 3.5 kilometers of this race, but the conditions and the course beginning to take its toll on the remainder of the fields. We go back top of the screen to the leaders in the front, and it's still a very strong group of leaders here as we go through that 4K split and going back through it, going deep to about 2 seconds off the lead. It was 26 men within 2 seconds of the lead carrier at the halfway mark.
I mean, this is just such a contrast to the women's race. At this point, 5.4 kilometers into the women's race, Parker Valby was way ahead. Next was Caitlin Tui, who was way ahead of the chase. So now we see a big, solid group of men. It has dwindled, and we can see that behind them it's starting to dwindle and sort of streak out a little bit. But here in the front, it's still anybody's game.
So once again, there's the standings on the individual side at the halfway mark as they're raking their way down this long straight stretch of race course, and they'll get to that 6 kilometers. So we'll have 2 kilometers to go. Crowd still urging them on here, going back and forth between the different spots on the course. Great shot looking back on that rest of the field, but definitely a separation now, Kara, with this lead group of, call it maybe 20 runners, and then a few seconds back to the group behind them. But there in front, Drew Bosley continuing to drive a very strong race here for the men's championship. And right next to him is teammate Nico Young.
And driving his team, right? We just saw that they had 4 men in the top 9. That's what makes NAU so difficult. They have so many great individual stars. and they just need a few other people to step it up. So we see that. We've seen them at the front the whole way. It is a special team when you have that, when you have multiple people on your team who could possibly win. Usually there's one athlete that's a little bit faster than everyone else, and the rest of the team kind of works together. But NAU, any one of their guys could win, which makes their team super, super dangerous.
So coming up on the 6 kilometer split, that's where they have just passed, and Nico, Young, and Bosley. And I think maybe that 6K, Kara, was an important point on the race, because you just sort of felt like there was a little bit of a switch on some of the runners here in the beginning to realize they're within striking distance of the final, and Bosley beginning to try to drive that leg turnover and try to change the complexion of this race. Kai Robinson, the defending champion, right alongside, and has now slightly moved to the lead.
You're absolutely right, Paul. That was a marker. They kind of looked around and we could see their cadence pick up. There's too many people left for these favorites now. Now it's time to really, really get to work. They've survived 6K as easily as possible, and now they have 2K to really get the damage done to their opponents. And we definitely see an inflection in pace, and we start to see people to fall back now. And this is gut check time, right? This is it. Like, are you going to go now? Are you going to play the safe game for your team, or are you going to go there and really try to risk it and get in deep here? And this is what the men have to decide at this point.
We saw Drew Bosley take his gloves off, so he's ready to go battle against the rest of this field. Robinson trying to win a second consecutive title.
And Robinson just looks so calm. Yeah, Robinson, the calmness on his face. Bosley seemed to make that move and kind of get that pack rolling, and he just appeared out and just came up to the front. Just really effortless and a lot of relaxation in his upper body. And now we see him, I think he's pressing, but it's hard to tell because his body language is just pure relaxation.
Well, let's see on this moment here as they are at their fastest pace and they're coming down these hills now, and just keep an eye on just that footing and their ability to stay in a position. And as Kara pointed out, the real key here is not only you're trying to have a presence of mind of where everybody else is related to each other, but looking down and maybe seeing if you can find some grass that hasn't been trampled on a previous trip around this race course. As footing on these downhills becoming important and key. Parker Wolf of North Carolina right alongside there. Also from Harvard, Graham Blank still up in the mix. Samuel, the freshman for New Mexico, on the right side of your screen. Nico Young emerges on the left side of your screen.
Paul, this is still anyone's game. With a K to go, we're going to see this last K just absolutely blasted. This is pretty rare to see this many good, talented people still together with a K to go. And I think we're about to see something pretty special. These athletes are going to start really rolling. They've already picked up the pace. We can tell by the cadence. We can tell by the amount of people falling back. But they all want it. And so we're in for a treat here with these final stages.
Looks like 10 guys in that lead pack now of runners. Less than a K to go for the individual champion at Nuttycombe in 2023. Robinson and Wolf behind him, the pair from Northern Arizona. Nico Young, Bosley in the hat. Samuel, Graham Blanks of Harvard. I think Alex Phillips of North Carolina was up in that group at 6K. But now it's decision time, Kara. When do you make your move?
And you have to know yourself, right? You have to know yourself. They're less than 800 out. Can you drive from that far out? For me personally, I'd definitely be trying to do that. Some of these men have amazing kicks. They're fine to head down that final home stretch and just dig it and just make it be a 300-meter final effort. But everyone's sort of reading each other, too, trying to figure out who has what left. We see Bosley now really trying to make that move and trying to press this thing far out. But Robinson looks great.
Yeah, onto that hill. Look at them, how wide they go. Everyone looking for safety. Bosley trying to basically go outside the race course to try to find some safety there, and he gets through. Everyone's safe through, but now Wolf is alongside Robinson. And Blanks of Harvard now beginning to make a move.
Yeah, and he's really starting to press now. We see him going to the lead. He's decided there's 400 meters to go. I know I can carry for that long. I know I can keep it together for that long. And look at this, Paul. Instantly, we see a change in the dynamic of the pack. Nico Young has moved to the outside. He realizes this is real. I can't let this go. He's going to try to do everything he can to keep up. But we are seeing some serious separation, and there isn't much running left.
So Graham Blanks of Harvard, 6th last year at the NCAA championship, comes off that final hill and makes his move. And look at the chase now to the finish. He's got a little bit of space, and for the second consecutive time at Nuttycombe, Nico Young trying to close the gap from behind. But from this point of view, it does look like Blanks is going to have himself a victory in Madison, Wisconsin. Nico now looking around, trying to hold on for second. As they get to the finish line, Graham Blanks of Harvard is your Nuttycombe champion. And then what a finish there for second between Young, Robinson, Samuel, and Jackson Sharp of Wisconsin as they all come through in the top 5. Rocky Hansen of Wake Forest finishing up as well. But what a performance by Graham Blanks. All about timing, Kara, committing to that move. Maybe just even that fraction of a second of surprise made all the difference.
Well, I think you have the key word, committed. When he went, he was all in. There was no, I'm going to feel it out and see who goes with me. He just put that hammer down. And the fact that he was able to separate by over 2.5 seconds in that short span really shows you that he really went all out there and no one could respond. People started to see, oh, this is real. I got to get in position. But it was too late. They couldn't respond enough to bring him back in. Perfectly timed by him. And as you said, perfectly committed.
Well, these results still unofficial, but we could be on our way to a first ever at Nuttycombe, as no teams have ever swept the championship races, but Northern Arizona, with 5 of their runners in the top 30, Kara Goucher emphatically wins their first team title since 2019. They won 4 in a row back between 2016 and 2019. They also won in 2013, the only 5-time champion. Moving on to Nuttycombe rings on the second hand as they'll win their 6th team title.
And if you're another team hoping to bring them down at the NCAA championships, you're really going to have to go back and watch this race and figure out where are they weak, because the problem is they're not weak anywhere. And so you're going to have to really elevate your game. They have such a strong team individually, and that makes them as a whole extremely strong. I'm sure their practices are just awesome. There's always someone having a good day who can pull the team along, and we see that by this huge dominant win here by Northern Arizona today.
Well, we start looking at some of those other team scores, and again, still dynamic as they confirm the top 5 finishers and score them completely. BYU looking like they're comfortably in second position. Syracuse, which came in ranked 6th in the country, in 3rd. And how about Cal Baptist? Again, had to sit out last year in a probationary year, moving up from Division II. Now finishing 4th at Nuttycombe, and came into this race ranked 14th in the country. And, Cal Baptist, a name not synonymous with our top teams in cross country, but they've built a great squad there. You have used a lot of international talent. That's a big story across, the rest of the country as well. This really is the de facto Olympic training center for so many countries around the globe, and CBU taking full advantage of that, both on the men's and the women's side, and a great performance for them if they can hold on ahead of Harvard, finishing 4th in the team standings, right ahead of Harvard, who will wind up in 5th. But, Kara, you're right. I mean, Northern Arizona, if Parker Valby was wanting to make a statement on the individual side in the women's race. NAU making an emphatic statement on the men's side in winning today handily here in Madison.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a statement, and that will not put in fear, but teams know who's the top now.
Let's go to Mike J with the winner of the men's race.
We have our men's champion for the 2023 Nuttycombe Invitational, Graham Blanks of Harvard. Graham, top 30 here last year, top 10 at the NCAA meet, and now you're the Nuttycombe champion, arguably the best collegiate meet in America. What do you credit that improvement to?
Failure. I failed 2 times here. It's one of the hardest courses in the country, and coming back here after two tries at it, felt a lot more experienced. So, yeah, I credit to that.
Okay, you say experience. What was that experience that you leaned on? What particular part of the course were you more ready for, so to speak?
It was a poor experience for sure, going up these hills and getting broken over by the 6K mark. But certainly, like, one of the most difficult parts of the course is the final hill over there. It's, especially today, very muddy. I'm sending prayers to the racers in the B race. So it's a slip and slide, and it was like that a couple years ago. So it was nice to be a little bit prepared for that.
So big meets coming up. You've got your conference championships, the regional meet, the NCAA meet. What does Graham Blanks do now to prepare himself for these last 3 meets?
Listen to my coach. I don't really know much about training, but I can listen to my coach. So.
Well, obviously, he's leading you down the right path. Congratulations on a great victory today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Graham Blanks, ladies and gentlemen, your Nuttycombe champion for 2023.
Well, that was a very humble interview, really crediting a lot of people around him. But he was right, and we noticed it, Paul. We could see that slipping in that footing became a part of the race, but he just timed that kick so perfectly. And at this point, they're not worrying about their fitting as he's just hauling in. It's just everything out there. But what a great effort by him, and how interesting. The 3rd time was the charm for him on this very difficult course.
Yeah, one of the great reinforcements of one of those lessons we all got during our competitive days is you just got to keep showing up. When you face adversity or you don't finish the way you thought you'd finish, keep showing up. And in his case, Mr. Blanks is now a Nuttycombe champion, adding his name to a illustrious list of former winners. Well, if there was any other reason that we needed to encourage you to stick around for these B races, I think Graham Blanks served it up, because this could be a slip and slide couple of races here on the women's and the men's side, as the B squad races are typically the first races of the sequence at Nuttycombe. Because of the conditions, they had swapped the races to get those championship races out on the course. And yeah, I'm not sure by the end of these 2 races we're going to have, and my fingers crossed, you don't want anybody either injured or humbled in the process, because these courses can be pretty unforgiving in these deteriorating conditions. But I guess for them, it's not necessarily about winning a team title. This is more about fitness and making a case maybe that, hey, I maybe deserve to be your number 5, number 6, number 7 runner. And what are the individuals in a B race looking to do?
Yeah, we'll see. It's going to be interesting, right? Because if they're trying to make a case and the footing is bad, they have to choose their health over that. So it'll be interesting to see what we see unfold in these next races.
Well, there you see the final results on the men's side of the championship racing. When we return on the other side of the break, it is the B races at Nuttycombe, starting with the women at 6K. Back with more from the 2023 Nuttycombe, Wisconsin Cross Country Invitational right after this.